All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Madhav Gupta, and I am a Senior Solution Architect here at Buy with Prime. Before we actually dive in, I just want to get a quick sense of the room. How many of you are Prime members and enjoy those fast, free shipping benefits? Just a quick show of hands. All right, awesome. So what if I told you that Buy with Prime was extending those same benefits directly on a merchant's website? So what that means is Buy with Prime is transforming how merchants can offer the same Prime benefits no matter where they shop online. Today, we want to discuss one such use case, Centric Brands, and their journey through the e-commerce landscape. We'll specifically zoom in on why they chose Buy with Prime as a key component for their brand new direct-to-consumer website. We'll then dive into Buy with Prime as a service and go over some of the key concepts and focus more on the shopper journey. Now, as part of that integration, our team here at Buy with Prime worked closely with Centric Brands to help solve several challenges, specifically relating to analytics. We wanted to dive into how we solve these challenges using AWS. We'd then like to hand it off to kind of show where Centric Brands is at now on their journey, and then open it up to the floor for any questions. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the stage Blair Rayfuse, the Senior Director of E-commerce at Centric Brands. Blair, take it away.
Hey. Thanks, Madhav. It's great to be here in fabulous Las Vegas, co-presenting with Amazon at reInvent on this Cyber Monday. This is actually my second reInvent conference. I was lucky enough to attend the very first reInvent back in 2013. And it's truly incredible how far the cloud has come over the years and how big this conference has become. Back then, it was only in the Venetian, and now I think it's spread over 5 hotels. Hey everyone, my name is Blair Rayfuse, and I'm a technology leader at Centric Brands. I've been with Centric for about 4 years, and I have the great pleasure of leading our Center of Digital Excellence, which is comprised of direct-to-consumer and business-to-business e-commerce, retail apps for our fleet of brick-and-mortar stores, omni-channel capabilities, and workflow automation. Centric Brands is a global lifestyle brand collective that is a leader in product design, development and sourcing, retail and digital commerce, marketing, and brand building. We believe in the power of growing brands through diverse product categories that build lifetime value. Our products are sold through leading retailers, specialty and department stores, and online. And of course, Amazon.com is a highly strategic partner for Centric Brands in both 1P and 3P capacities, and now Buy with Prime. Bottom line, we build brands. We are a leader in men's, women's, kids' apparel, accessories, and beauty. We have an incredible portfolio of over 100 licensed and owned brands. We operate under license for brands like Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Joe's Jeans, Under Armour, Disney, and Coach, just to name a few. And we own brands like Robert Graham, Hudson Jeans, Averex, and Fiorelli. We also operate some very hot joint ventures, including our fast-growing Favorite Daughter, Jennifer Fisher, and Preston Lane brands. We are a company of over 2,000 passionate employees that make all of this happen. Our headquarters are in New York City, and we have offices around the world, which help us reach a global audience and gain supply chain efficiencies. But don't take my word for it. Let me show you who we are. Need sound? Okay. So Centric Brands is mainly a wholesale business, but we are also experts in direct-to-consumer channels. We have an amazing direct-to-consumer e-commerce portfolio that I have the privilege to help bring to life. We have 11 e-commerce websites and growing, all of which are supported in-house, from our rockstar development team to our digital marketing teams, graphic designers, product photographers, merchandisers, copywriters, and e-commerce managers. From soup to nuts, we do it all. My team gets to support some awesome brands like Robert Graham, Joe's Jeans, Favorite Daughter, and iZod, which is the brand we will focus on in this session. Our digital center of excellence runs very much like an internal e-commerce agency, without the billable hours, overages, and escalations. We get to focus on what we love to do without the hindrance of exceeding client budgets. So going the extra mile to achieve pixel perfection doesn't break the bank for our brand partners. To give you an idea of the scale of our e-commerce portfolio, our brands will process around 400,000 orders this year collectively. We are on pace to hit 25 million online sessions. We have over 3 million active email subscribers. And our brands enjoy incredible year-over-year growth. One of our brands has enjoyed 50% annual revenue growth over the past couple of years. It's truly amazing. Of course, Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend is the most exciting time in e-commerce. And I can't wait to analyze our site performance metrics, conversion rates, and trends over the past couple of days. I want to share this story of our e-commerce journey for one of our brands in particular, iZod, which is a brand I'm sure many of you are familiar with. To give you some background on the brand, iZod is a timeless and classic brand which has been outfitting America for over 80 years and is a staple in many men's closets. The iZod logo is a common sight at the golf course. And you may even see me wearing it on the 19th hole, which is my personal favorite when I get to play golf. iZod is a 360-degree wardrobe solution. Whether it's a golf course or the tennis court or business casual at the office, we've got you covered with some great product categories. I have a quick brand video to show you how Centric has reimagined the brand since acquiring the license back in 2021. So as you can see, it's not your granddaddy's iZod anymore. Okay, so iZod's e-commerce journey started back in the summer of 2021. My team was tasked with building a cutting-edge website to launch for Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend, just 4 months later. Although we did reach that goal, unfortunately, our efforts were stymied by our 3PL capacity. iZod is predominantly a wholesale business, so naturally, we chose a warehouse that specializes in wholesale fulfillment. But they couldn't handle our wholesale volume plus direct-to-consumer demand. We couldn't jeopardize the wholesale revenue stream, so our e-commerce site that we worked so hard on was shelved. When our 3PL finally got a handle on our wholesale operations, in came the global supply chain crisis, which hit our industry especially hard. We had to prioritize commitments to open orders from our wholesale retail partners for the product that we could get into port. So direct-to-consumer took a further backseat. Once the supply chain crisis subsided, we needed a solution, and we needed it fast. A solution where we could operate direct-to-consumer like wholesale from a logistics perspective. And by that, I mean shipping out pallets of product and have Amazon fulfill the direct-to-consumer channel. The solution was Amazon Buy with Prime. So why did iZod choose Buy with Prime? Speed to market was critical for us. We kicked off the project in February of this year and had to be live by June so our customers could buy their dad some new polos for Father's Day. So you may be thinking, if we already had an e-commerce website ready to go, it must have been easy to launch with 4 months of runway. Well, we had to blow the dust off the site we built 2.5 years earlier, clean it up, and integrate the Buy with Prime functionality, which was not the hard part. As many of you know, the longest pole in the tent is always the downstream system integration, which is where Amazon really stepped up to help us design and develop a sustainable solution using Amazon Web Services. 3PL capacity was no longer a concern with Amazon's powerhouse fulfillment network, which essentially gives us infinite scale and allows us to provide the top-notch service our customers have come to expect. A native integration with our e-commerce platform also made it an easy choice. And who doesn't love free Prime delivery and returns? Amazon Prime has unquestionably set the gold standard for e-commerce fulfillment. We also love the Amazon.com product review syndication. On day one of launching our new iZod e-commerce site, one of our core products had nearly 13,000 reviews, which is more than all of our brand's product reviews combined. All of this was possible because iZod has had a 1P relationship with Amazon over the years. So all of these reviews were gathered through the 1P Amazon. Obviously, product reviews are a huge conversion booster, and it's really where the game is won or lost. And Amazon.com is undeniably the go-to place to read consumer reviews. Amazon.com also has one of the most trusted checkout experiences in the world, and they really know how to optimize conversion. So to be able to leverage that on our own .com was a huge win. Amazon's checkout, along with Amazon Pay, provide a frictionless experience for Prime members. Customers don't even have to log in if they already have an Amazon.com session open, and don't have to pull out their credit card or enter their billing address because it's all saved in Amazon Pay. Creating a frictionless checkout funnel is the name of the game in e-commerce. Conversion rates drop when the wallet has to come out, when the credit card has to come out of the wallet. Lastly, and most important, is Amazon Seller Central and Amazon Pay's robust API capability for data analytics and financial reconciliation. Not only does Amazon build great customer experiences, their back-end capabilities made it easy for our team to optimize our business processes, analyze data, and seamlessly integrate with our downstream systems to automate financial reconciliation. The reconciliation automation piece was crucial for us. We needed a sustainable and reliable integration with our ERP for financial postings, an app to push us sales, fees, and returns data. As you can imagine, our technology team gets a lot of pushback from our accounting team if we plan to go live with any project that adds manual processes to their plate. In fact, this project would have been dead on arrival without that automation bridge to our ERP. To put it in perspective, Centric Brands is over a $2 billion company, and iZod represents a very small piece of that pie. Our lean accounting team simply doesn't have the bandwidth to record transactions manually. Amazon played a pivotal role in all aspects of the software development lifecycle, from requirements gathering to technical design and development and UAT. Amazon helped us deliver a solution that satisfied all project stakeholders. And all of this was made possible by leveraging the power of Amazon Web Services. Now, I've given you an inside look into some of our pain points, our challenges, and the solution. So with that, I will turn it back over to Madhav to give you the Amazon perspective and to walk you through how Amazon solved our challenges using Buy with Prime and Amazon Web Services.
Great. Thank you, Blair. So now, as we've seen, Centric Brands has taken a major step forward with bringing together all these innovative services, including Buy with Prime, to better serve their customers. And this actually brings us to Buy with Prime, which has been that game-changing solution that played a critical role in their transformation. So let me take a moment and introduce you guys to the actual Buy with Prime shopper experience and explain how it's enabling brands like Centric to extend those same Prime benefits on their own website. So Buy with Prime, or that Prime Smile logo that you see right there, enables millions of Prime members to shop directly from a merchant's website with the same trusted experience that they would expect from Amazon.com. This also lets brands offer fast, free, and reliable shipping directly on their direct-to-consumer website. Now, I want you all to take a minute, and given that it is Cyber Monday, imagine that you're actually shopping for, let's say in this case, a toaster, right? With Buy with Prime, shoppers can then see a Prime badge, as well as the delivery estimate and other details about the benefits that are offered via Buy with Prime. And let me highlight it right there. So as you can see, it's become a natural part of the e-commerce landscape of any merchant. And it doesn't stop there. We offer a variety of advanced integrations with a growing ecosystem of services and real-time events. Our goal is to meet merchants where they are, and offering flexible and customizable interfaces helps ensure a smoother adoption and a seamless experience for both brands and their customers. Now, the next step in your journey is going to be to actually log into Amazon. By clicking on the Prime button, users will then log in and be able to see revised eligibility and revised estimates on all of their Prime eligible items. Now, this simple and seamless process ensures that shoppers can easily access those same Prime benefits without significantly altering that shopping experience. Now, once they've logged in, they're able to see all of these revised delivery estimates, and they'll essentially know which products are qualifying for that fast, free delivery and exactly when they're going to receive it. And if you're a Prime member, you'll then see and enjoy the same checkout experience that you know and love about Amazon. All your shipping details from your Amazon account will be pre-populated and used for the checkout process. And that's not all. From the merchant perspective, we enable the same post-order experience that Prime members have come to expect. You can manage your orders directly through Amazon.com's platform, and you benefit from real-time tracking updates, ensuring a seamless experience from purchase up through delivery. Now, throughout this whole process, Buy with Prime adhered to a simple tenet. Merchants should have complete control over the shopping experience and their customer information. When you consider all the different services that actually went behind the shopper journey to actually make the experience possible, it's clear that wasn't just about placing an order. There were many smaller components that each focus on a specific task. For example, getting that delivery estimate, placing an order, offering a return, right? And all of these were interconnected. And so our challenge was actually integrating all of these services together. Now, managing all the interdependencies between these services actually became a pretty complex task. So to address this, we started by focusing on creating a skeleton for our product. What are those key services that are essential for delivering a basic shopping experience? And this came in the form of enabling an order, processing returns, and various features like this. These use cases then became the backbone of the Buy with Prime experience. And as we developed new features, we made sure that they aligned with the core structure. And an example of this would be virtual bundles. So this allows multiple items to be associated together virtually without necessarily being shipped in the same package. And we found that this approach really worked well for us. It ensured that a lot of the most impactful decision-making processes were made up front. And with so many different teams trying to integrate their components, we were able to maintain a consistent product offering across the board. Now, given we had a decoupling of all of these individual services, we found that we faced several complexities. So for example, we wanted to ensure that our Prime shoppers would enjoy those same fast shipping, right? And not just fast, but free and reliable. And that came in the form of Amazon's fulfillment network, or for us, Amazon multi-channel fulfillment. Similarly, we also decided to utilize Amazon Pay as our default payment processor, but we also kept the avenue open for merchants to choose their own payment processor down the line. And what that meant is that when Centric Brands came to us, they had a very unique use case. They wanted to know that for any disbursement that came into their bank account, what orders and returns contributed to that disbursement, and what fees were they actually paying for using all of these services via Buy with Prime. And it sounded like a very simple problem, but as you can tell, we had a bunch of decoupled services, and so they weren't just integrating with Buy with Prime. So looking at that shopper journey, a customer places an order through Buy with Prime, right? Centric Brands is able to get the order information and the customer information through the Buy with Prime APIs. Now, behind the scenes, given this decoupling of the services, in order to get information related to fulfillment and the actual costs related to fulfillment and storage, Centric Brands also had to communicate with Amazon multi-channel fulfillment. And similarly, the payment method for Buy with Prime that Centric Brands decided to use was Amazon Pay. And what that meant was that in order to get the fees related to transactions, Centric Brands also had to communicate with Amazon Pay. And to summarize, Centric Brands was creating a single unified interface for their checkout experience. But they actually had to integrate with 3 different interfaces to get the data that they needed, right? And once they had this data, they then had to manually join it together. And given all this data was interconnected and Buy with Prime was in its early stages, there wasn't actually an easy solve for this. And with that being said, we want to dive into the analytics setup that was created by Centric Brands. Now, a quick disclaimer, we decided to utilize a extract, transform, load, or ETL process instead of an extract, load, transform, or ELT workflow, simply because Centric Brands' use case was to load all of this data into their downstream system rather than have it queryable through a data warehouse. Now, the process we followed to create this architecture was very simple and actually just utilized 3 steps. Step 1, determine your inputs. Step 2, determine your outputs. And step 3 is create that initial transformation layer. So let's start with what our inputs are. Thinking back to our original problem statement, we had these 3 different services, and they each provided data in separate formats. Buy with Prime provided data via its APIs in a JSON format. It required you to pass it in a start and an end time for your order creation times, and it would provide the corresponding data with pagination. Now, similarly, MCF also had its own format. They provided a CSV formatted file, which we call a settlement file. Now, this file was generated on a weekly basis and provided all of the various items that had shipped along with their storage and fulfillment costs. Lastly, Amazon Pay supplied transactional data, again in a CSV file via an S3 pre-signed URL, but this actually came on a daily basis. And this contained all of the transactions for the day prior. Now, these were the data inputs that we worked with, and as you'll notice, I stressed a few key components. Firstly, the data formats that we got were different, right? We had JSONs, we had CSV files, and each also had its own sort of data cleansing operation. Secondly, you'll notice that the frequency in which we received this data was also different. Buy with Prime was an ad hoc request, whereas MCF was on a weekly basis, and Amazon Pay was on a daily basis, right? And lastly, all of our data actually corresponded to two different formats. On one hand, we had the transactional file, which was at an order level. Amazon Pay fees would get charged based off of when a shopper checks out. This is the corresponding fee that you get for the order. Now, Amazon MCF and Buy with Prime had details related down to an item level. So your JSON file would contain your order data as well as all the specific items that made up that order. And for MCF, you would also get in your settlement report all of the different items that had shipped and their corresponding costs. So rather than have Centric Brands rebuild all of these different services and then re-architect their analytics service, we decided to firstly break down these two sets of or types of data. So order level data came in one file in the form of a transaction report for our output. The other was actual data that provided an item level granularity, and this came in the form of an order file. Now, that was all great, and we're somewhat ready to move on to our ETL process. But before we do that, let's make sure we actually have our tech requirements, straight. So whatever solution we developed, we needed to make sure that it was easily scalable and deployable, something that Blair and his team wouldn't necessarily have to be on call day and night to help troubleshoot, right? We wanted to make sure that Centric Brands also wanted weekly reports that included all this data and the transformations based off of those three key inputs. The reports themselves needed to be fully automated and run on that fixed schedule. And lastly, the data must be loaded into their downstream system without any manual hand-holding process, right? So how do we actually get there? Well, for the first requirement, we decided to utilize Terraform. Since Blair and his team had extensive experience with Microsoft Azure, we opted for a multi-cloud friendly approach, rather than introducing them to another service like AWS CDK. So Terraform allowed us to build a solution that was both flexible and scalable, aligning with their existing expertise. We'll go more into detail about the features that we used with Terraform later on in this presentation. But for now, let's actually dive into the architecture that we created. So this is where AWS came into play. And we built an ETL-focused architecture that handles the entire process seamlessly. We had our extract stage, where we read in the data from the various sources and stored it in a temp storage location. Our transform stage allowed us to clean, aggregate, and calculate the data to meet Centric Brands reporting needs. And lastly, in the load stage, we took the transform data and loaded it into their desired downstream system. Now, each of these layers is crucial to ensuring that the data flows efficiently and accurately from inputs to the outputs. So let's break it down further and take a closer look at each layer. So let's start with the extract layer. The goal here is pretty straightforward. We need to pull the necessary data from each of these systems and ensure that it's ready for the next step of processing. And to generate reports on a fixed basis, we decided to utilize Amazon EventBridge Scheduler. So this allowed us to trigger an AWS Lambda function, which would then be able to pull in data from all of these data sources and ensure that it was ready for processing in our transform stage. Finally, this clean data was then stored in Amazon S3, partitioned by report type and run date. Now, we want to dive into these partitions because, as everyone in the analytics space knows, your partitions are critical in determining whether your query will run for a few seconds or a few hours. Specifically for us, we chose these partitions because it would be easier for Blair and his team to actually debug any issues that popped up based off of where this data was actually coming from, right? If they had a missing transaction, then they could go to the corresponding Amazon Pay reports. Similarly, we chose the run date because each of these different reports had their own data frequency. And rather than try to build in additional complexity and ensure that we pulled in the corresponding partitions relating to, say, the next 7 Amazon Pay files, we instead opted to create our own schedule and therefore decouple ourselves from these various upstream systems. Now, it also made it easier to conduct historical trend analysis. So, for example, each of these data sets could then be queried on to essentially analyze how our performance has been over the past year, over the past 3 months, and potentially gain insights into their product. So examples of this could be, hey, what products sold the most over the past 3 months? Or which products am I paying the most fees for in the last 6 months? So with this structure, we ensured that the data process, we always had the latest data, and it was in a well-organized and accessible format, which was ready for our transform layer. Now that we had extracted the data from each of these 3 sources and stored in S3, the next step was to actually transform it. And to enable that, we needed to load the correct partition information for each of these data sets. So once Lambda stored it into S3, it would then trigger off AWS Glue. Now, we utilized AWS Glue to perform several critical steps. Firstly, we ensured that we did our schema validation. Given that each of these systems would give us maybe 10 or 50 different fields, we really only needed access to about 10 or so attributes. And in this step, we ensured that we had those 10 attributes that we really cared about. And that way, like if tomorrow we add in new fields in, say, Buy with Prime or in MCF, Centric Brands would actually remain unimpacted by any of those changes. The next step was to perform data cleaning. So given that the output format needed to be in a CSV file, we needed to ensure that we handled like the join conditions between all 3 of these data sets. And for example, the order ID was stored differently, and there were potentially other sub-attributes like the item IDs, which needed to ensure that we had them consistent across all 3 sets of data. And so once we did that, we also needed to filter out any records with missing values. We actually ran into a few edge cases here, which we ended up solving for. So when we talked about those frequencies earlier on, what we realized is that your fees actually get charged at different points in time. So Amazon Pay fees are charged as soon as the shopper makes a transaction. However, when that transaction occurs and when the item actually ships out, there is a bit of a gap. And MCF actually charges for the storage and the fulfillment when the item is shipped. So in this case, if I order an item today and I run the report today itself, then I would have the corresponding order information as well as the Amazon Pay transactional fees, but I wouldn't actually have the corresponding MCF fees. So in order to ensure that we had all this data, we pulled in not just the current partition, but also the prior partition of data to ensure that our primary join condition was based off of the data that we had. Now, we then filtered it by the date ranges and ensured that the generated report accurately reflected the relevant order data and that all the information was present. Once that was done, we then stored this information in S3. And this is normally considered the load phase, but for us, it was more of a temporary storage, as we need to make sure that we loaded this information in Centric Brands' downstream system for processing. So the S3 object creation event was then used to trigger off, in this case, AWS Lambda. Now, this was the ideal choice for us, given its versatility. At the time of design, we were unsure about the exact nature of the designed output destination. And given that this choice needed to accommodate potential future changes, Centric Brands could have decided to, say, opt for sending this via email at a later point in time. Lambda allowed us to accompany these changes without actually changing the fundamental architecture. Now, we have our architecture, but let's actually revisit Terraform, right? Once we've built this, that wasn't just the end. We had to make sure that we were able to scale this and deploy this with the proper controls in place, right? In an ideal scenario, Centric Brands would make a change. They would then test it in a lower environment, and once they've signed off, then they would push it to production. With Terraform, we were able to do this using two key concepts: backend configuration files and environment files. Now, normally, Terraform by default allows for a local deployment setup. A user can make a change and then deploy it directly from their computer. However, this also causes the potential to run into state change conflicts. So if, for example, Blair was making a change and then pushing it to their test environment, at the same time I was making another change and then pushing it to that same test environment, given we were both modifying the same resources, we would run into a conflict. To accommodate this, we opted for a remote deployment setup. We would need one file per environment, and this would be supplied when initializing Terraform, or the first stage in our deployment. Now, the goal of this file was to specify the remote backend storage details for state file management, and specifically for AWS, the S3 bucket and the DynamoDB table, which maintain the state file and the state lock. The state file would be stored in Amazon S3, and for that, we need to make sure that we had the region and the bucket information. And the state lock would be stored in the DynamoDB table, and for that, we need to make sure that we had the table name as well as the partition key of that table. Now, apart from the backend configuration, we also needed one other thing, which was our environment files. Right? We wanted to make sure that our dev and our prod environments were completely decoupled. And so this environment file contained all the specific information we needed, like the ARNs for the secrets that were used to call the different APIs, or potentially the run frequencies and the report storage locations, right? And this was specified during the plan and apply stages. With these two files, Centric Brands no longer had to worry about modifying their code for different environments. In the future, if they also wanted to add a new environment, they would simply have to configure these two files accordingly in their repository. So Blair and his team have successfully implemented this architecture and are actively using it alongside BWP Prime to help streamline their operations. So this integration has significantly helped in optimizing their processes, especially with data management. Now, with all this in place, I'd like to invite Blair back on stage to give us an update on where Izod is today in its journey and how these solutions have continued to impact their business. Great.
Okay. Thanks, Madhav. So where are we now? We achieved our June 2024 target date to launch the revamped izod.com, which was truly a cross-functional team effort. We continue to scale our e-commerce business with solid sales growth on Buy with Prime. Our in-house development team fully supports the technology solution we just presented, which was a completely new tech stack to us. And it was definitely a leap of faith for us to adopt this new-to-us technology. Centric had essentially no footprint on AWS at the time of scoping this project. So my team didn't have much experience in the various AWS services or provisioning the infrastructure we needed. But our full-stack developers were able to quickly learn the programming languages required, and running infrastructure as code on Terraform made the server provisioning easy. Serverless models are awesome and very cost-effective. And of course, Madhav's hand-holding really helped us too. He's a great technology partner and probably one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Our partnership with Amazon continues to get stronger. We recently launched Lionel Messi's brand on Amazon Fashion, and we continue to roll out other new Amazon programs, such as Amazon Luxury Stores, which is a great fit for our high fashion brand, Hervé Leger. We are working on new Buy with Prime customer experiences for izod that will make checkout even easier. And we continue to iterate on our analytics, reconciliation, and inventory management capabilities for the Buy with Prime solution. And of course, new business opportunities. Buy with Prime was such a great experience for izod, we are considering onboarding new brands onto the platform. Whenever we acquire a new brand or want to go to market for an existing brand, Buy with Prime is always part of the business strategy conversations. And we're also considering moving some existing cloud and on-prem assets to AWS. So we will be taking full advantage of our time here at re:Invent to meet some new potential technology partners. And that concludes our presentations.